If you are considering a move to Austin, Texas, there are some essential things that you must know beforehand, and in this video, we're going to talk about them. Stay tuned. Hey again, everybody. This is Frank with the Living in Austin group at eXp Realty. Every week, we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and yes, the bad. So consider subscribing if you haven't already, and ring that little bell to get notified anytime we put out a new video. We also love the reach outs we get now all the time from people just like you in need of our help when relocating to the greater Austin area. So do not hesitate, keep them coming. Whether you're 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team. Whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. So yes, in this video, we are talking about some essential things you must know about Austin, Texas. And I wrote down maybe 10 or 11 ideas that just came to me, some things that people just might not talk about or don't get talked about enough, things that we feel you must know before relocating here, both good and bad. And because I jotted down so many, I'm really just going to breeze through them and try to keep as many of them as brief as possible so that we don't have a very long video on our hands. And so for starters, I wrote down what makes Austin, Austin. And in case you didn't know, the culture here is very progressive. It's very liberal, for better and worse. And so you're going to see some artistic aspects of Austin. You're going to see, dare I say, hipsters in Austin. You're going to see long beards. You're going to see maybe some fedoras. You're going to see people who drink IPAs. You're going to see breweries, distilleries, all kinds of locally owned coffee shops. Austin as well is very health conscious is what I was going for there. A lot of fitness here as well. So you're going to see a lot of cyclists in Austin, a lot of joggers in Austin, a lot of outdoorsy people in Austin. As well with our lakes here, you're going to see people paddleboarding, people canoeing, people having picnics. And music as well is a big thing here. You're going to see anything from kind of local people that are doing smaller venues where you can just kind of chill and have a good time, maybe some local jazz if you're into that, or all the way mainstream. We have ACL here, we have South by Southwest. So there's a huge culture here for music and the arts, as mentioned. In addition to that, you're going to see a lot of nice people here. A lot of people, especially those who are originally from Texas and who grew up ingrained in that Southern culture. You're going to see a number of them. Nice people, at least compared to a lot of the places our clients have come from, certainly on the coasts where, at least stereotypically, some people are not as friendly. And lastly, perhaps to contradict myself a little bit, in addition to those local nice people that you'll find here that make Austin, Texas, you are going to find a large transplant culture here, with Austin being one of the hottest spots in the country consistently for relocation. A large number of people you meet, say in downtown Austin, are not even going to be from here. So that does impact the culture in terms of how Austin is changing and becoming less Texan. However, it also makes it a fun, cool, diverse melting pot of people from all different creeds, cultures, religions, and backgrounds. And so in a nutshell, that is what you can expect and what makes Austin, Texas, Austin, Texas. Up next, regarding essential things you must know about Austin, Texas, we have the emerging tech scene. And in case you've been living under a rock, perhaps, Austin, Texas has such an emerging tech scene. A lot of the people from Silicon Valley and the Bay Area, a lot of the companies are flocking here. I mean, Austin, Texas already had what has been called Silicon Hills for quite a while, but especially in the past few years, a lot of these companies have just been flocking here, taking up all the land we have in Texas, or not taking it up, I should say, making great use of a lot of the land we have in Texas. So Amazon's here, Tesla's here, Google, Facebook, IBM, Dell, so on and so forth. And so you're going to find a lot of what are called techies who live in the greater Austin area, especially yes, downtown Austin, but also North Austin, around that domain area, that tech hub where a lot of these places are, the Apple campus, things like that. And so that's something to keep in mind. If you are in tech, you'll fit right in Austin. There are tons and tons and tons of techies here. A lot of them here drive Teslas. That's a good way to point them out. Like, oh, there's a Tesla. That guy probably either works for Tesla or he works in tech, that type of thing. But it's all fun. And there's a huge community here for it. A lot of people, just as I mentioned about transplants, if you meet 10 people and say, hey, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm in tech. Yeah, I do this with tech. I do that with tech. So that is something that is very much part of the culture now in Austin. Some people don't like it, some people do like it, but it's something essential about the city that you must know. Now, something else that is essential to know about Austin, Texas is going to be the crime and the homelessness. Now, a lot of our comments that we've gotten in previous videos have been saying, well, it's not as bad as Houston, well, it's not as bad as San Antonio. And that's up for debate in terms of just how bad Austin is. Some people might say, oh my God, it's the worst in Texas. Other people say, you think that's bad? Come to this city in Texas. So I'm not going to debate that. However, I am here to relay the data that the crime, statistically speaking, in Austin, Texas, at least the city, is going up and up and up and up. The homelessness as well. You're seeing a lot of tents throughout the city. You're seeing more panhandlers, and not just within downtown Austin. You're starting to see that perhaps in North Austin towards suburbia, and especially South Austin, leaving the city, places that it wasn't as common before. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're coming from a place like Los Angeles, California, it's not going to be to that extreme regarding homelessness or the crime. You're not going to be sleeping with one eye open in Austin, Texas. But it is a talking point to some extent regarding just data and statistics that are coming out about certain crimes, aggravated assault, murders, things of that nature that are increasing. And of course, the occasional eyesores of tents and homeless people. So that is something to keep in mind about Austin, Texas. It is as many great things as there are in Austin. There are some not so great things regarding its culture. And unfortunately, that is essentially a part now of Austin, Texas. Moving right along, we have the subject of cannabis, and this is always an interesting one to talk about. I am not speaking only to the stoners out there. I am not speaking only to the people who love to get high. Nothing wrong with that, but this is less for you because I feel like a lot of those people can get it regardless, right? Regardless of the law. What I'm talking more about are people who depend on cannabis in their day-to-day lives for something. For example, my oldest brother, he is autistic and epileptic, and he would have these horrible seizures for many years growing up. And for a long time, he was on a pharmaceutical medication that would help with the seizures, but its side effects were really destroying his body, were really harming his health. And so we had to find a way to wean him off the pharmaceuticals and onto THC-based medication that would help with the seizures instead. And so if you are someone who depends on it for depression, who is using it for some kind of ailment, anxiety, whatever it may be, and you're using cannabis as not necessarily a crutch, but as something that helps you in your day-to-day life, it is going to be not impossible to get in Texas, but much more difficult, obviously, in Texas and in Austin, for that matter, than places like California, Colorado, so on and so forth. So, don't get me wrong, there are some organizations here, for example, in the case of my older brother, who were able to help, but there are some hurdles to jump through, some loopholes. But yeah, just a quick little PSA in case you didn't know, it is still illegal in Texas. And even though Austin is progressive, even though Austin is liberal, it is still in the state of Texas. And so if you are someone who does depend on cannabis to any extent, be warned. On that note, there are some shops here, like Delta 8 shops, where they have treats for dogs who have anxiety. They have all kinds of gummies and things that can help people, but it is not going to be necessarily clinical. It is not necessarily going to be pure, what they call Delta 9 cannabis. So the more you know. Up next, a very essential thing to know about Austin, Texas, unfortunately, is that it's becoming less affordable. Now, it should be no secret that Austin, Texas is above and beyond the most expensive city to live in the state of Texas, but not just by a slim margin. It is really much more expensive than anywhere else in Texas. I believe the median home price, at least within the city limits, is above $600,000 now. So don't get me wrong, if you're looking at suburbia, if you're looking at the Huttos, the Round Rocks, the Leanders, the Butas, the Kyles, places that are within 20 to 40 minutes of the city, rest assured it is going to be much more affordable. You're going to have that good old bang for your buck kind of thing that you do see here in Texas. But the closer you are to the city, generally, the more expensive it is going to be. And so is your gas, and so is your milk and your groceries and all that good stuff. And so it's becoming quite a talking point. I mean, you're seeing articles about it in all kinds of websites and magazines, how Austin, Texas was once this cheap, super cool place to move, and now it's becoming this Texan version of LA or San Francisco, where it's just becoming unaffordable for so many people who are getting priced out of it. That goes to tell you that it is becoming less affordable, and that is something essential that you must know about the city. Moving on, we're going to keep this one very brief because there's not much to say about it, and that would be the subject of bugs, of critters. In not just Austin, Texas, but in Texas, you are going to have mosquitoes, you're going to have ants, you're going to have wasps, hornets, bees, an abundance of spiders, especially if you're in a more humid spot of Texas, or you're close to water by any means if there's a lake nearby. Like, so just keep that in mind. Cockroaches as well. I mean, Texas is a place for bugs. And some people are like, hey, that's no big deal. I don't care about bugs. Bugs are bugs. For other people, that is not the case. A lot of people hate the bugs. And I mean, I pay monthly to have pest control come and kind of just do what they do to my, my balcony, my space. That way it minimizes it, but it does not even fix it. You'll find ants in your pantry sometimes. You'll find spider webs that regenerate after 24 hours. I mean, and that's aside from the wasp nests and all of that stuff. So if you are not into bugs or critters, Texas or Austin, because it's included in Texas, might not be the place for you. All right, up next we have a big one, a very essential thing to know about Austin, Texas, and that would be the construction and traffic. Now, let me explain. So Austin, Texas is not going to be as large nearly as San Antonio, Houston, or Dallas. However, Austin, Texas, in spite of that, is still such a hotspot for relocation in the country, as I mentioned. And so what do you have when you mix a small city, relatively, with such an influx of people moving here, a rising population day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year? You find that the city's infrastructure cannot keep up simply because it was not designed to handle this many people. And when it's not designed to handle this many people, you are seeing a lot of construction to fix the traffic. The problem is the construction feeds the traffic, and then it becomes this vicious cycle where one cannot exist without the other. And so Austin, Texas, for many years and for many years to come, is a place that will have loads of traffic and loads of construction starting. I mean, rush hour now starts at like 2 or 3. It used to start at 5 or 6. Not anymore, because everyone moved here, and Austin's like, oh, we're going to build a new road for this, but it's going to take like 50 years. So yeah, if you're coming from LA, okay, it's not going to be that bad, but it's going to be pretty bad. I'm not saying the traffic in Dallas, Houston, or San Antonio isn't bad either, but at least they have these loops. They have better infrastructure to support their populations. Austin does not. In addition to that, if you're living in Austin, Texas, and you're coming from one of the coasts, no beaches. Your closest beach is going to be maybe 3.5 hours. That's Galveston Beach, and that is not a very nice beach. Your next best beach is going to be Corpus Christi. That is maybe 4 hours away in another direction. And then you have South Padre Island, which is a further drive. I want to say 7, 8, or 9 hours, depending on traffic. So while Austin has a lot of lakes and bodies of water to do boating and fishing and canoeing and paddleboarding, if you're wanting to go to the beach, you're living in a state and you're living in a city within that state that to get out of Texas, to get to a beach, to go to Oklahoma, to go to New Mexico is going to be hours and hours and hours of driving. The only silver lining to the size is that things are more spread out. Your stores are going to be bigger. That's a huge contrast I learned when I did a brief stint in LA for about a year. I lived there, and everything there was tiny and old and smushed together. In Austin and in Texas, everything is newer, larger, and spread out. Then that affects your moods, that affects the vibe, the energy here. It's less stressful, less anxious, less staticky, and much more open and calm and peaceful. So that much is good, but yeah, just take that into account. You're going to be doing a lot more driving and for much longer periods of time. Now, real quickly, before moving on, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. If we've been providing any value for you, consider liking the video as it helps our channel grow. Remember to subscribe, and lastly, share our content with anybody you know who's wanting to learn more about living in Austin, Texas. Up next, this might be a big one for many of you, and that would be the lack of professional sports in Austin. Only just recently did we get Austin FC. So we have professional soccer now, and so a lot of people who weren't even soccer fans are now fans of Austin FC because for eternity before that, there were no professional sports teams here. So if you're coming from Boston, if you're coming from LA, if you're coming from New York, and you're used to having the Celtics, the Lakers, the Knicks, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you're used to having baseball, if you're used to having football, I mean, my mind goes to basketball because I'm an NBA junkie. But if you're used to having that, if it's a thing, you've always gone to games, or you like to tune into your local team and it's just part of your life, something you do with your family, whatever it may be, and you're coming to Austin, Texas, be prepared to have none of that. The closest professional sports team would be the San Antonio Spurs for the NBA, and that's about a 2-hour drive if you want to go down to the AT&T Center in San Antonio. So just keep that in mind. If you're a sports dude, Austin is not for you unless you like soccer. Now, last but certainly not least, we have the subject of a lack of scenery. And here's the thing, do not get me wrong, there are beautiful spots in Austin, Texas. If you want to go to Lake Travis, Lady Bird Lake, Lake Austin, Lake Georgetown, if you want to go to Mount Bunnell, if you want to find little scenic spots for pictures, for picnics, Zilker Park is gorgeous, right? You do have lovely spaces, especially like Dripping Springs is gorgeous. You have the hills in West Austin, or even a bit northwest Austin in Leander. So there are very pretty spots in Austin, Texas, but otherwise it is not very scenic because it's in Texas, and Texas for the longest time has been farm and ranch land, very flat. So I say that because if you're coming from Salt Lake City and you're used to your view of the city with mountains behind it, no. If you're coming from LA or San Francisco and you're used to the gorgeous West Coast scenery, no. If you're coming even from Manhattan and you're used to the beautiful views of New York City, no. So you have nature spots in Austin, but it's really, I mean, you're not going to be blown away by anything like, wow, it's just freeways and flat, and you'll have your spots, don't get me wrong, as I mentioned, but you might be disappointed if you're coming from a place where you perhaps have been taking it for granted, the nature and the scenery, the palm trees or the mountains, the beaches, whatever it might be. None of that is in Austin, Texas. So there you have it, some 101, some essential things that you must know about Austin, Texas, especially if you are considering relocating here from another part of the country. And so hopefully we've done a good enough job of helping you arrive at your own conclusion as to whether or not it is right for you. That is more or less what you can expect. This was very rushed. This was very brief. As you could tell, we just kind of breezed through those and didn't elaborate too much, but I thought I'd cover a lot of umbrellas of subjects rather than really dive into them in particular. But in that case, if you are turned off, now you know. And if you're not turned off, if you find that Austin, Texas is right for you and you're planning to move here anyway, again, that is what we are here for, helping people just like you relocate to the greater Austin area, finding that perfect spot and making that move as smooth as possible. But the only way we can do that is again by you reaching out to us. So don't hesitate, whether you're 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team. Whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. It is what we love to do. And again, every week we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and the bad. So remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that little bell to get notified anytime we put out a new video. Comment down below, like the video if we've been providing any value for you. Share with anybody you know, and until the next one, you guys, my name is Frank. This is Living in Austin, Texas, and we will absolutely catch you later.